أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، سيما بقية الله في الأرضين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I can see that one person has already got their hand up, but I'm going to ask as usual, can you guys hear me? All right, brilliant. So I'm here in the studio of Safina Planet today, and I've got this brilliant background, mashallah, alhamdulillah. We're going to be taking a little bit of a detour from the story or from the general programming that we've been going on. I wanted to continue with the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, but today I wanted to take a little bit of a tangent, and it's a very important tangent nonetheless. This tangent is about why we are conducting these lessons. Now, out of all the subjects that we could have addressed, we chose to talk about just two things, the Quran and the Salah. Why? Because one of them is your means for Allah, His words being understood by you, and the other is a means for you to express your words with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, generally speaking, what you'll see is people will be attracted to some method of gaining a spirituality, right? Especially in the month of Ramadan. Now, we're already we've passed through the majority of the month of Ramadan, and it's very, very rapidly coming to an end. Inshallah, may Allah have accepted all of your du'as and your a'mal thus far. But the real point here with this entire session was to get you guys as connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as quickly as possible. And the best means to accomplish that has been the Holy Quran. Now, why are we talking about these things with such urgency? Because number one, and this is something which might sound like a cliche. It might sound like, oh, the scholars are always saying that. It might sound like, oh, these guys are always emphasizing this thing. But if you knew what we know, you would understand why we need to emphasize it now more than ever before, and it's only going to increase as time goes on. And that is that the zuhur of Imam al-Hujjat al-Qa'im alayhi salam is very, very close. Now, we usually say this in order to uplift your spirits, to give you hope for the future, and all of that is true. But there's real practical implications behind this. And that's why we needed to get you connected as soon as possible. You see, we have been in the Hausa system for over 10 years now. For 10 years, I have been studying in the Hausa. I've been increasing my knowledge, learning everything that general scholars learn. And after all of these years, as controversial as it might sound, and as you know, I'm no stranger to controversy, but if you are going to rely on the scholars in order to identify your imam, first and foremostly, and secondly, if you're going to rely on them to let you know that this is it, it's happening now, the major signs have been fulfilled, and it is actually kicking off right now. Many of those scholars that you have pinned your hopes to are not going to guide you astray. They're not going to guide you aright. Okay. There's things which are happening which we can't say, number one. Number two, there's things which are happening which we desperately want to say, and inshallah, we will tell you. But it all, at the end of the day, it comes down to you. You are the ones who need to get connected very, very quickly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the word of God, and to the words of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And so, look, I wanted to start with this verse of the Holy Quran. This is a verse that you will find in Surah Tawbah, that's Surah 9, verse 31. Okay? So if you would like to go to your Qur'ans now and have a look at what the Quran is telling you. And while we are reading this verse, again, it's Surah 9, verse 31. While we are reading this verse, I want you to keep in mind everything that we have discussed previously about the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, in particular, how whenever the Quran is talking about Bani Israel, this is not a message necessarily for the Israelites or those who we call Israelis today. It's not necessarily a message for the Jews of today. In fact, it's a message for all of us. And there is a hadith which I've mentioned before, and I'll mention it again. Which says that there's the Holy Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. He warned us and he said that, look, there is no pitfall that Bani Israel fell into except my ummah will also fall into it. In fact, all of those tests that they were tested with, we will also be tested with them. And this is actually quite a dark hadith in one sense. And I want us to look at the world from this worldview as well. It's a dark outlook. You have to understand, Bani Israel, they fell into the biggest traps. And the part of the story that we're at right now shows you that their prophet left for just 30 to 40 days, right? And after that, they did the worst crime, the unthinkable crime of worshipping a golden cow. Okay. Now, if we couple that with this hadith, we'll understand that our people are also going to fall into such traps. And that should be very terrifying for us, because it won't be you guys doing it. It will be the scholars leading you into those traps. Actively, willingly, they will be the ones to do that. Okay. Just like Bani Israel, it wasn't the common masses, it was their scholars. Now, let's go to the verse now. What does it say? They have taken their scholars and monks as lords besides Allah, and also the Messiah, the son of Mary. And they were not commanded except to worship one God. There is no deity except him. Exalted is he above whatever they associate with him. How often do we read these verses and we think, oh, it doesn't apply to me. I already worship one God. Well, if that were the case, why would Allah keep on emphasizing it to us? And therefore, we have to consider the possibility that maybe we have started to obey other than Allah. We have started to conform to other than Allah. And again, the translations they play a big role in this, because when you read it, you'll read that it says worship one God, right? But what it's actually saying is لِيَعْبُدُوا إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا. Ibadah, that's what it's really about, right? Ibadah is not just talking about worship, it's talking about conformity. Sometimes we'll conform to all sorts of things. We'll conform to the trends of society. Sometimes we'll conform to what our parents taught us and brought us up with. Sometimes we'll conform to what our education systems have told us, what our scientists are telling us, what our experts in whatever fields are telling us. We're conforming to certain things. Now, if those things are in line with the truth, absolutely, then that is a form of conforming to Allah. But sometimes, and you can see these examples in our contemporary history, which we've lived through, sometimes the scientists are outright lying. Sometimes they're completely wrong. You guys know what I'm talking about. Sometimes the politicians, in fact, what am I saying? Sometimes I should say the politicians tell the truth, right? Because most of the time they are lying to us. And the same goes for our scholars. And this is one of the sentiments which is pushed by Imam Khamenei. You have to understand, Sayyid Sayyid Nasrullah, the last thing that he does, one of the last things that he does is he writes down, follow the leader. Why does he do that? And he says that the leader is alone. Hajj Qasim, Shahid Qasim Soleimani, one of the last things that he writes in his will is there is nobody more oppressed than the leader. Why would he say that? You guys have to be a detective in many ways. In Akhirul Zaman, it's not going to come to you very quickly. It's not going to come to you easily. But you have to consider the reality that the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have warned us that when Imam Mahdi alayhi salam comes, many of those who call themselves Shia and followers of him will reject him. You have to ask yourselves, like detectives, why? Where have we gone terribly wrong? Let's read the Arabic of the verse. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. They have taken their rabbis and their priests, their monks, as lords besides Allah. Ask yourself, what does this actually mean? Did they start to do sujood to their priests and their rabbis? Did they start going Allahu Akbar and bowing down to them like that? Did they do ruku' towards them? How did they take them as lords? Arbaban, Arbab, Rabb. Who is Rabbul Alameen? Allah, the Lord of the worlds. In that sense, they took their scholars and their priests as Arbab, as lords. Who quotes this verse of the Quran? Who quotes it? Out of all the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, who talks about this verse? It is none other than Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. The one that I'm referring to is Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And as you know, the zuhur of Imam Zaman is going to be almost like a parallel of what we saw take place in Karbala, where we saw that those people, they called Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Thousands of letters were sent to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They said, come, we are ready. And when he came, not only did they not support him, not only did some of them sell their swords to the camp of Yazid, some of them, their women, their wives, and their mothers came to them crying and saying, please don't go out and fight. Please don't go out and fight. Their hearts became softened. They failed to support the Imam of their time. Not only that, many of them, Ahle Kufa, they turned completely against the Imam of the time. They joined the army of Yazid. This Hussein alayhi salam is the one who quotes this verse. Where does he quote this verse? In the Sermon of Mina. What is the Sermon of Mina? I would urge everybody to go and read the Sermon of Mina. All you need to do is go onto the internet and type in Imam Hussein Sermon of Mina, and it will come up. And inshallah, one of the brothers and sisters, I'm sure, will share the link momentarily in the chat. But the point is, he quotes this verse. Then what does he say? He says, and he explains, and he gives us the tafsir, essentially, of this verse. And he says, they took their rabbis and their priests as arbab, as lords, because they obeyed them other than Allah, rather than Allah. You see, it's not about worship. It's about obedience. Worship, of course, is part and parcel of obedience. I'm saying it because of the discrepancy in the translation. So oftentimes when we're reading the Quran, this is something which is repeated over and over and over again. In Surah Fatiha, what do we say? إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Ye alone, thee alone, you alone do we, what? Worship. But does it mean worship? It means obey. It means conform to, right? So Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who is he talking to, by the way? Is he talking to the Jews? Is he talking to the Christians? Is he talking to the Sabians? Is he talking to the monotheists or the kuffar? No. is he's talking not only to the Muslims, but he's talking to the scholars among the Muslims, right? So therefore, it should speak volumes to us, dear brothers and sisters. Also, consider this. In the time of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they became so confused that they abandoned the Imam of their time and they actually joined the camp of Yazid. We're looking back at it and thinking, what a bunch of idiots. What a bunch of morons. How could they make such a big mistake? Well, let me tell you something else, okay? Those people faced a fitna. If we had been in their time, maybe we would have fallen for the same trap. How many of us can honestly say that they would have had such a high level of faith, such a high level of iman, such a profound connection to the Quran, that they would have been able themselves to ascertain that this Hussein, who's rising against the Yazid, he's just a political figure. We've seen this. It's been going on for so many years. Imam Hassan before him, then Imam Ali for so many years he was fighting. People had already grown tired of fighting. Think about that for a moment. If we had been there, would we have had the courage to say, yes, I'm going to send my son, I'm going to send my daughters, I'm going to send my friends, I'm going to watch my comrades be shaheed, and it doesn't matter what happens, I am willing to sacrifice everything on the path of Imam Hussein alayhi salam because I have reached a state of yaqeen that he is the waliullah on earth, the friend of Allah on earth. How many of us can actually say that? Now we're saying it because we've become so disconnected and we can go to the internet and we can read all the hadith. People in that time did not have that much information. Okay, so let's put that to one side. Now come to Akhirul Zaman. Akhirul Zaman is that era, dear brothers and sisters, which the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have explicitly told us it is full of fitna. It is so confusing, in fact, that when Imam Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam are explaining it to their companions, just how confusing it's going to be in Akhir al-Zaman, those companions burst out crying. Can you imagine that? Just by hearing how confusing it's going to be, they burst out crying. It's Dhuhr time. And the Imam is explaining this, and he says to his companion, why are you crying? The companion says, oh, Imam, I can't believe it will be that confusing. That was only a couple of years after Karbala, right? Only a couple of years after Karbala. They were more connected, and the message of Karbala was more literally alive for them at that time. Of course, Karbala is always alive for us. Every time we remember Imam Hussein, it's as if it happened yesterday. But they were, by time, closer to that age. So they had almost a memory of it. They would have had grandparents, at least, who were alive at that time, who could tell them how confusing it was. They weren't crying at how confusing it was at that time. They were crying for you. They were crying for how dystopian it's going to be for you. How hayran you're going to be. If you go to the hadith and you talk about Akhirul Zaman, one theme is repeated over and over and over again. Hayra, hayra, hayra. It's a time of confusion. Now, if I were to ask you, dear brothers and sisters, can you not feel the confusion? Of course you can. I'm pretty sure everybody can feel just how claustrophobic and how suffocating the world has become, to the point where you don't know where the right path is. This scholar's saying one thing, that scholar's saying another thing. The marjas are arguing over whether the moon has been sighted. It's absolute chaos. And it is. So traditionally, what you guys would expect from me is I'm a scholar. I'm supposed to give you hope until you think everything's okay, right? And I can do that. And I've done that for years, right? And many scholars, they'll put you in this state of, absolute, everything's fine. It's not fine. It's absolutely not fine. The state of the ummah is so terrible, in fact, I'm not saying these things, by the way, to put you into a state of despair. God forbid. I'm saying these things to you so that you can truly wake up. There are such red pills on the horizon for us, such plot twists ahead on the horizon for us, that most people are going to just completely reject it. They're going to completely their minds are not going to be able to comprehend it because they've been lulled into this romanticized image of what they think zuhur is going to be like, of what Imam Zaman is going to look like, even. I was talking to a fellow scholar and researcher just the other day, and he was talking about these pictures that we have of Imam Zaman, right? And you must have seen these pictures of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and they all look very, they look like glamour models, with, the green turbans and everything. And look, this is part and parcel of the perception that's been created. In the Shia world, people will think that they're safe because they're connected to Imam Ali alayhi salam and they follow the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Do you? Do we, as even scholars, follow the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? You have to ask yourself this: are we truly doing that? How much emphasis is there on the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? Really? Is there? Well, when you go to the higher echelons of even the Hausa system, I'm very sorry to say it, but that amount of emphasis that ought to be there is not there. And many of the scholars, their time becomes preoccupied in just researching and studying the minutest details of what other scholars in the past have said. And I'm guilty of this as well. You spend hours and hours and hours just deliberating over what such and such alim said 100, 200, 300, 1,000 years ago. Right? But when it comes to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, even, and Sayyid Abdullah is a better expert in this, but I just want to touch on it before I move on. Even there, the emphasis is not there. And so if there are people in the community, dear brothers and sisters, who are assuming that both the Sunnis and the Shias, they've gone astray because the Sunnis took the Quran, but they abandoned the Ahlul Bayt, and the Shias took the Ahlul Bayt, but they abandoned the Quran. These are massive fallacies. The reality is that we have abandoned both the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Now, I want to see an honest show of hands who has heard things in these sessions which they had never heard before. And the hands are going up, alhamdulillah. Brilliant. Now, I want you to put your hands down. And now I want you to put your hands up if a significant number of the lectures of other scholars that you have attended, when you have attended those lectures, you haven't learned anything new at all. The hands are going up even faster. Okay. Now, you brothers and sisters, have to understand that I'm not coming out of a place of hostility. I have no reason to be jealous of other people. Okay. I have no reason to, literally, I have no reason to say the things that I'm saying or to do the things that I'm doing, except that I genuinely care. I care about you people out there. I care about the ummah. And even when I try not to care, I still care. You know what me and Sayyid Abdullah talk about sometimes? And what I talk about with others among my comrades and, the friends that Allah has given me, may Allah bless them. A lot of the times what we're talking about and what they tell me is just don't worry about people so much. Don't care about people so much. You're killing yourself. And then when you go to the Quran, what does it say? Allah tells his prophet, he says, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. He's telling his prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he's telling him out of love, he's saying, perhaps you will kill yourself out of grief upon their steps because they won't believe in this hadith, in this reality, in this narrative. Dear brothers and sisters, again, I want you to genuinely and honestly put your hands up if it has pained you when you have known the truth, but others have not believed it. Thank you. This pain that you have, number one, it is a blessing. You should hold on to it because that is a pain which the prophets and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have always had. Okay. And at the same time, and again, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite for saying this, you need to be able to not kill yourself because of that pain. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling his prophet, maybe you will kill yourself out of this grief because they won't believe it. Now, you have to understand the videos that I have made exposing certain scholars, that is the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg of what the realities are on the ground, of what the reality is behind the conspiracy which has been created by Shaitan in order to stop you from reaching the Imam of the time. The tip of the iceberg, dear brothers and sisters, it really is. Now, think to yourself this. If there are people in the community who struggled and have rejected those videos, the tip of the iceberg, how on earth are they going to accept the other realities? Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, when he comes, he is going to kill many of the scholars of who? The Christians, the Jews, the Sunnis even? No, among those who consider themselves to be the Shia. Now you think to yourself, genuinely and honestly, if you see a figure emerging tomorrow and you see that he is killing not only Shia, but he's killing some of the scholars among the Shia, what is your reaction going to be? And think now about the plots of our enemies who have planted groups like ISIS in order to make us hate that which Imam Zaman might bring. ISIS is a complete false flag. It's created by the enemies. And this is why Imam Khamenei, before, by the way, before Trump said it, before any of these politicians said it, before any of the media personalities said it, they're all saying it now, and it's all open in the media. Before any of that, our leader, Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, said it outright and clearly. ISIS is a creation of America. It is funded by them. It is created by them. And back then, many people did not believe what Imam Khamenei had to say. They rejected what he said outright. Even I had doubts. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is how important it is to stay connected to the leader. If there's one hope, dear brothers and sisters, which is going to get us through the mess that we ourselves have created, it's Imam Khamenei. And what does Imam Khamenei keep on emphasizing on? What does he tell you to get connected to? In many of his speeches, in much of the culture which he has pushed to be cultivated, not only in Iran, but among the youths across the world, is what? A culture of what? The Quran. The Quran. And again, I want to emphasize this. He doesn't say, accept my interpretation. He doesn't say, I insist that you accept my interpretation or anybody else's interpretation. He says, go to the Quran. It has the answers for you. So it's become a bit of a heavy discussion, and I wanted to take this detour in order to properly emphasize this before we continue with the story of Prophet Musa, inshallah, in the next session. I hope you guys don't mind, but honestly, we don't know how long we're going to live. If sometimes before a lecture, I need to remind myself that this could be the last lecture that I ever give. And therefore, I have to think to myself, what is the most important message that I need to get across? And when I really break it down, it is this. Number one, the zuhur is far closer than you think, inshallah. Number two, you need to get connected to the Quran. Number three, Stay connected to the leader. With that said, inshallah, we're going to go now for the Q&A session, and we're going to open up for your thoughts and comments also. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brother Carl Williams, let me just, okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Kyle. How are you?
I'm good. It's a very heavy subject, and thinking through what you've said, you who how many will recognize the Imam alayhi salam if he comes and he's killing Shia and you know the the sort of the sort of media sorcery is gonna try to confuse everything. So I mean, you can't. It's very difficult to to sort stuff out through the media. You have certain people that, but what I'm sort of uh, contrasting this with is like you say, like try to do it. You kind of keep your have a notion of your faith yourself. Not trust others to bring you it, but if you don't trust anybody, you're not gonna be able to sort it out by yourself unless you're right there. If you're far away, you're not gonna be able to accurately to assess it without trusting. I mean, I guess like you said, trust Sayyid Khamenei, um, but I mean, if you don't trust, like the structure within the Shia community is I think it has brought a lot of benefits. Like why are we supporting Palestine instead of the Sunnis are not. They're not like us. So I mean, it's a difficult balance. So I wonder if you can give guidance on that.
Yeah, it would be unjust for me to say that I have not benefited from the structure that has been created. Okay, I have benefited from it. I was raised in the Shia community, and I used to go to the majalis and I used to listen to them. And that is initially how, at the end of the day, my heart got connected to Imam Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salam. And yeah, no, I can't say that I never learned anything. I have learned things. And at the end of the day, I saw other scholars and I was enamored by them and I wanted to be like them. And that's why I came to the Halza. So there definitely are benefits in this structure. But even as I joined the Halza system, dear brother Kyle, I'll tell you this, that there were things that stood out to me as strange. I mean, we discussed the idea of work, right? Working and how the Ahlul Bayt and all the prophets, as far as we can see, they worked, right? And that hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, sorry, there are 70 forms of worship, and the best of them is to earn halal income. How many scholars are actually working? In fact, not only are they not working, but it's frowned upon in the Hausa system for a scholar to work. It's seen as beneath you. Now, that's really strange, and that's always struck me as strange. That's one thing. Another thing that's always struck me as strange, and I've always talked about these things and discussed them with other Hausa students, and I've never got a satisfactory reply. Another thing that struck me as strange is the idea of Hidya. If you don't know, Hidya is this idea that scholars, when they go to a certain place, they're going to recite a certain number of lectures. And at the end of those lectures, what are they going to get? Hidya, which is a stipend, a little, and sometimes not so little, cash bonus. Now, where does this come from? See, if you go back to the Quran, it's telling you that an idol is something which you create with your own hands, and then you ascribe some sort of divinity to it or some sort of sacredness to it, when Allah never told you to do that certain thing. But you have to understand that this is the upper tier, the elite of the religious community. And there is a system which has been created by and supported by those elites in order to perpetuate this um, custom, this practice, to the point where, a lot of scholars will treat becoming a scholar and gaining the knowledge of the deen as a career path. Literally, it's a career path. I never came here to gain a career. I came here to learn my deen and do whatever it takes to get the knowledge out to you people. That's not the mentality that the majority of scholars have, nor is it the mentality which is pushed by the whole Zoe system. And by the way, I want to point out in the holy city of Qom, the the discussions concerning these things are far more open. If you go to places like Najaf, where it's far more traditionalist, yeah, it's completely frowned upon, and there's almost like this divinity ascribed to the scholars, to the point where it's it's frowned upon to ask them questions or to argue with them. The best scholars I was given this example that somebody was sitting with an alim. I can't remember if it was Allama Tabatabai or it was one of the greats. It was one of the greats, or Shahid Baqir al-Sadr. But he was debating with him and asking him questions, and then he said, I don't know. I don't know. And that student who he was discussing with, he said, how can you not know? You have an amama on your head. You have one of those. And then he took the amama off and he put it on his head. And he said, okay, now you tell me. To get it into his mind that, look, these are just clothings. Yes, there is an element of spirituality behind it. This is ascribed to the Prophet's clothing. Yes, definitely. But you also have to understand that in the time of the Prophet and in the times of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, there was no scholarly class. We've created a scholarly class like the Christians and the Jews, and you'll see they have these priests, and their job is just to be a priest and to give sermons. That is it. Go out into the field and sow grains. No, 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 no. That you're too holy for that. That's a Christian and a Jewish mentality. That's not our mentality in Islam. In Islam, dear brothers and sisters, everybody's supposed to be alim. Everybody. In the time of Imam Zaman alayhi salam, it may be that even children will have reached a level of knowledge where they can do istinbat. They can actually derive their own rulings themselves from the Quran and the Hadith. But so what's happened is an entire disconnect, a system where we are the scholars, you leave the research and everything to us, you people don't know anything, you're jahil. And if you really think about it, this is a system of control. One of the things that I've grown up with this mentality, and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in their words and in the Quran have reinforced and backed up this mentality where you are supposed to ask questions. You are supposed to be curious. You're supposed to go out and search for the answers. If you don't get those answers, you're supposed to dig harder. But that's not what's been perpetuated by the Hawzawi system, I'm very sorry to say. And so this is what it's all about. If somebody, dear brothers and sisters, tells you not to question something, are they not hiding something? Are they not hiding something? What's being hidden here? I'm going to get into so much trouble for saying these things. I'm already in trouble, but what can I do? Does that shed some light for you, dear brother Kyle?
It does, yeah. I mean, I remember not too long ago I saw a video of a student asking directly the Ayatollah Khomeini. He was criticizing the decision making of the government, and but he was there. He gave him a very blunt answer, but it was available for it, and it's
Yeah, absolutely.
it's difficult to find, like I say, find the balance of,
Oh
it is a
yeah,
very
no,
good
it
thing if we
is.
can
It
follow
is.
them, but
Look, one of the
yes.
themes that you'll find in the Quran is they rejected the prophets because of how down to earth they were. ما لهذا الرسول يأكل الطعام ويمشي في الأسواق. What is with this prophet? This is their complaint. What is with this prophet? He eats food and he walks in the markets. What kind of prophet eats food and walks in the markets? I reject him. Okay. This is highlighting for us a certain mentality, dear brothers and sisters. This mentality is a mentality which will actually stop us from ascertaining the truth. And if you look at the scholars, they have perpetuated that mentality by not being down to earth. And you guys have actually helped to make this happen. I'm sorry to say, but that's what's happened. The scholar who never says a word, mashallah, he's so knowledgeable. You never heard his voice, maybe. And, he's like, he's a god. He's a god. The scholar like Imam Khamenei and Imam Khomeini, who were so down to earth that even today you'll see that Imam Khamenei is among the students. Youths are putting their hands up and they are criticizing him directly. Youths from university. They are saying, oh, you said this, why hasn't this happened? He has put himself out there. There are so many lectures of his that you get tired listening to them. See, that kind of a personality, you're going to think, oh no, he's not that knowledgeable. That's the mentality that you and I have. The scholar who's making the efforts to be amongst the people and constantly be in communication with them, that scholar, no, he's not knowledgeable. The scholar who just appears out of nowhere, sits on the mimbar and says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. That one you're going to respect. See, this is what's happened, and this is the whole culture that we have created of the scholarship. And I'm telling you, part of this, the plot behind this, is just to completely disconnect you from the reality. Sister Sayyidah Mahdiya, let me, okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam, sister. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, my question is not that long, and it's not really connected to what we learned today. Jazakallah for what you taught us today was really important, especially in today's times. But my question is from Surah Al-Isra, ayah 18 and 19. In those two verses, Allah is talking about the people who want things. Like He talks about those people who want this dunya, so they get this dunya, but they also get the hellfire. So the thing which confused me was like they didn't go against God, right? They just um, uh, like wished for this dunya. So what I connected to our session yesterday, so I drew the conclusion that maybe God like tried to make them love Him, but they didn't, and they got attentive towards this world instead of God.
Okay.
So is that why He's giving him like those people the hellfire, or is there any other reason? Like,
Yeah.
if you could please correct me.
Really fantastic question. Thank you for asking. So we'll just very quickly, let's read the verse. So it's Surah Isra, that's Surah 17, verse 18, for anybody who would like to follow. So it says, whoever should desire the immediate, we hasten for him from it what we will to whom we intend. Then we have made for him hell, which he will enter to burn, censured and banished. من كان يريد العاجلة عجلنا له فيها ما نشاء لمن نريد ثم جعلنا له جهنم يصلاها مذموما مدحورا. And then the next verse says, but whoever desires the hereafter and exerts the effort due to it while he is a believer, it is those whose effort is ever appreciated by Allah. ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا. In many ways, dear sister, I'm glad that you asked this question because it exemplifies a lot of what we've been talking about. The desire of a mu'min should not be based on this dunya. And this is another thing that we often don't emphasize on. We go on ziyarah trips. I remember on the last time I went to Karbala, right? And this is supposed to be a supremely religious and spiritual trip. But I ended up in a hotel with many Westerners, unfortunately, and the windows were so big, and outside of that window, I felt as if I jumped out of that window, I would land on the dome of Abbas alayhi salam. That's how close we were to his shrine. And it was a beautiful sight to behold. And yet we were having not a five-course meal, but a 10-course meal, every type of meat and chicken and dessert that you could think of. And I don't know, everybody was wearing the most luxurious clothing, and it was just so surreal. And so we've, in many ways, what we've done is we've transformed our religion into a means of gaining the dunya. This was never supposed to be us. We were supposed to be those people who wear the plainest clothes. We were supposed to almost, like, the only example I can give for it to become clear to us, we were supposed to be monk-like in our existence. And we were supposed to completely let go of the dunya. Now, the way that it's been presented is that, no, practically you need the world, practically you should gain money and this and that and this and that. And I understand that. Let's go back to the Quran. It's saying that one who desires the immediate, i.e., the dunya, we're going to hasten it for him. He'll get everything. Dear brothers and sisters, if you want the dunya, it's going to be yours. It's going to be yours. Right? If that is what you strive after, even through your Quran, you're trying to please other people, or through your salah, you're trying to please other people, or through your preaching, you're trying to please other people, or whatever it is you're doing, if it's just for the dunya, you're going to get the dunya. But what are you going to get after that? The Jahannam. Jahannam. What do we pray in our qunut? رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Oh Allah, oh our Lord, give us the best or the good of this world and the hereafter. Right? And so some of us choose to divide our minds like this. We want this world and the hereafter. And in some ways that's good. But you have to ask yourselves, what is actually good in this dunya? This dunya is worthless. There's a hadith that says that if this dunya was if it even had the worth of the wing of a mosquito, Allah would not have given this dunya to all the kuffar, all the disbelievers. Go and look, you're going to see that all the disbelievers, all of those celebrities, all those evildoers, those disbelievers, they have so much of the dunya. This, if anything, highlights for us, dear brothers and sisters, this dunya has virtually no worth at all. The way we're supposed to treat this dunya, dear brothers and sisters, is like this. The Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam taught us that in fiqh, if you're dying, right, you're dying, you're on the verge of starving to death, and there is the flesh of swine or a corpse of another human being, you have to eat from that corpse in order to sustain yourself, in order to keep yourself alive. The Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam said to treat the dunya in this way. Treat it like a corpse. Only take from it that which you need. Not what you want necessarily, but what you need. Right? There's that saying that you should eat to live, not live to eat. Some people, they are alive for the purpose of eating. I mean, it's more of a relevant message because it's still the month of Ramadan, but still, taking anything from the dunya, they are alive just to enjoy the dunya. Other people, they eat in order to stay alive, in order to sustain themselves. Those are the people who have this sense of taqwa, okay? You are supposed to align your desires with the desire and the will of Allah. What does Allah want for you? He doesn't want you to have this temporary nothingness. The only good, right? When we're saying Rabbana atina fi dunya hasana, oh Allah, give me the best or the good in this dunya. This dunya, the best things, do you know what you can get? Seeds. Seeds, that's it. Seeds which I can plant, they will grow in the hereafter. The Holy Prophet had some meat. It's rarer that the prophets would actually have meat because they usually couldn't afford it. Okay. And so he gets this meat and he cuts it and he gives a large portion of it away. His wife is present, and that wife, she says, I think it was Aisha, she said, oh, what a shame. We've given that whole portion away, and now we're only left with this much. The Prophet said, actually, it's the opposite. This bit that we're actually eating, it's going to be consumed, it's going to be gone. But that portion which we've actually given away, that's going to remain with us forever. And so we have to think of this dunya. The best of this dunya are deeds. If Allah gives you something in this dunya, the best thing you can do with those things is to plant them for your akhirah. So, for example, if Allah gives you meat, give some of it away because that bit that you give away is going to remain with you forever. If you are given some money, give a portion of it away to the poor, to the needy, to the orphans. People are really suffering out there. That portion is actually what's going to stay with you. The rest of it is going to go through you. You're going to digest it. It's going to come out the other end, and that's it. Okay, so what happens when your desires become aligned with Allah? You realize that He's merciful, that He loves you so much. He doesn't want you to have this nasty, lowly dunya. It's called dunya because it comes from the word adna, which means the lowest realm, the lowliest thing. He doesn't want you to have that. He wants you to have the highest thing. And so when you align your desires with Him, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا. But whoever desires the hereafter and exerts the effort due to it while he is a believer, it is those whose efforts will be appreciated. I hope that answers your question, dear sister. Inshallah, I think it did. Okay. Are there any other questions? I can see down here. Yeah, okay. Brilliant. Let me quickly go to the chat. Okay. We'll take one last question, inshallah, from Brother Abbas. Sorry, Brother Kayvon. Okay. Not sure what happened there. I saw some hands up and then they quickly went down. So maybe you forgot your question or. Okay, Kayvon's back up, so I'll unmute you.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, one of the essential tips that you gave us was to get connected to the Quran. And what are these? How do we get connected to the Quran? What is like the process of that? How can we better the best way to get connected to the Quran?
Okay, so I don't know if you've missed a lot of the sessions, but that's pretty much what we've been talking about. Actually relating the Quran to our own lives, extrapolating through them, contemplation. But in short, I'll leave you with this hadith, which both I and Sayyid Abdullah actually mentioned, which is that the Holy Prophet commanded Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, the Imam for whom we claim to be Shias of. What did he tell him? Stay connected to the Quran in all circumstances. Now, if the Imam needed that, but we consider ourselves too holy and too pious to need it, what does that say about us? Now, when it comes to staying connected to the Quran, as much as possible, read it all the time. And this is something that I often emphasize, dear brothers and sisters, you're waiting for the bus. Open your Quran app, just have a look at that message for you. You're waiting for the microwave to go ping or the oven to stop cooking your meal. Open up your Quran app and just flick through it. Have a look at the Quran. You're walking, you're in the shower, you're brushing your teeth, you're about to go to bed. Whatever circumstance you're in, keep reciting the noble verses of the Quran. It's not just for reward, it is about connecting you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his appointed Hujjah Imam Zaman alayhi salam. I hope that helps a little bit, inshallah, and we'll talk more about this issue as time goes on. You guys have been fantastic. I do apologize for my rant today. I hope that you guys have benefited from it, however. There were some vital messages that I needed to get across. God bless all of you. And we're going to go for a short break now, and then we're going to go to Sayyid Abdullah. From myself, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.